March 30th.
Good night, Teresa.
Hi, everyone. We're just there's a few more people coming in. So we'll just wait a couple more seconds and then we will get started. So if everyone could just make sure that they're muted as you come in, please. We will be using the chat and also asking for some participation throughout. So if you make sure that you know how to use the raise hand icon, it's at the bottom there, the reactions, or you could just always unmute as we go through. But please utilize the chat as we go through mainly. Again, just make sure that you're muted, please, as we go through. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right, good. All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle Sider, and that was Amy Chafee, who is on with me, and we are prevention specialists who work for an agency called North Point Council. We were asked to present to you today virtually about internet safety and social media safety. So today we're going to discuss some of the and address some of the challenging issues that we share as parents raising children in the digital age. So we'll talk about the importance of healthy media boundaries, and we will focus on, we'll talk a little bit about some of the positive things that have come from the use of the internet and social media, and then we'll talk about some of the other concerns and things that we need to do as adults and parents to keep our children safe. So today we're going to again address some of those challenging issues. We'll have some opportunity for questions and answers and discussions throughout the presentation. So we hope that you participate as we move along. The online world can be exciting. It can be inspiring. It has lots of opportunities for us to offer to our young children or to all young people. However, it's very important to manage and minimize the numerous associated risks that come with that. So we'll just kind of start it off with asking you, what kinds of things do your children love to do online? And again, you can put it in the chat and Amy can let us know, or if you want to unmute, you can do that too. But what kinds of things do your kids love to do online?
Watch YouTube, TikTok, video games.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so those FaceTime we see on there. Yeah, so those are some common ones. And we know that, you know, Xbox, we see YouTube, TikTok, Netflix, TikTok, Snapchat, right? Yeah. So those are a lot of different kinds of apps and different online social media platforms that that our students and our children are using. We know that, you know, especially over the past, you know, few years, that we have been spending more and more time, you know, not just adults, but young people as well, online and using the internet, that the use of these things has increased. So we want to open up our talk with talking about some of those basic stats that we have found regarding the kids' access to, or what is their access to different kinds of devices that they're using. So if you take a look at the slide that we have up, this is the percentages for 2 to 17-year-olds and what kind of devices they are using. So the highest percentage was tablets or iPads, the Chromebooks that they're using for schoolwork as well. So gaming, lots of people mentioned that, gaming consoles. Some have smartphones, laptops, desktops that they may be using, and other kinds of devices as well. So would anyone like to share what age children that you have and what kinds of devices that they might have access to? Again, you can always put that in the chat if you'd like.
Sophia, how do I bring in the chat? Oh, there are 22 participants. Super.
So if you click down to at the bottom, it says chat and there's like a speech bubble down there. Yeah.
12, 7, 10, 12, 14.
Okay, so mostly we've got, middle
15,
schoolers,
12,
high
11.
schools. I see iPhones, tablets. Okay, 11-year-olds. All right. So if your child has a phone, what age was your child when he or she got that phone or first started using that phone? Okay.
12, 11.
12, 11. Okay, so on average, kids with a smartphone received it by age of 8. And those without one can expect to receive one by the age of 13. So oftentimes, once students become, get into middle school, high school, and they start to become involved in especially maybe extracurricular activities, or they are outside of the home, away from parents more, that's when we oftentimes see an increase in students now receiving smartphones of their own. So let's look at the apps that they're utilizing most, as you can see for teens ages 13 to 17. We could kind of take a look at some of those apps that we talked about. So we see that YouTube is very popular, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Reddit, and then there's some of the other ones that are mentioning. And as we talk about different kinds of apps and going on, does anybody know or do they have an idea about what their child, think about what your child is mostly on, or how much time they're spending on these apps on a day. So does anybody know the age that you are supposed to be in order for you to be able to create an account on any social media? So there's an age. Good. Okay, so we see somebody put 13 with a question mark. It is supposed to be 13 years old. So the average age that parents are allowing children, so we know that there are children that are under that age that are using some of these apps. So the average age that parents will allow their child to create their own social media account is approximately 11 years old. Okay. So being online, again, has lots of different benefits. And so we need to acknowledge that as well. Sometimes students, especially during the COVID, when we were not able to be around and amongst our friends and family, it helped with building and maintaining relationships. It can sometimes enhance peer engagement. It can create a sense of belonging. It can even increase cognitive functioning if it's used in a correct way. Okay, so we're not saying that all social media is bad. But we're going to talk a little bit about how to create a balance, and it's what it's being used for and how it's being used. Okay. So as we talk about the potential risks of social media use, an easy way to remember those risks involved is to remember the 3 C's. So we'll talk about content, contact, and conduct. So as we look at that, we'll look for, some things. How many people think that, we'll ask this question, how many people think that their child is fully aware of the dangers that come from sharing personal information online? And you can just kind of say yes or no in the chat if you'd like. But think about if you think that your children, you really are fully aware of all the dangers that come with sharing that personal information. Right? I see lots of people saying, semi-aware or no. Okay. So it's important that when we talk about monitoring what children are, or what students are looking at or participating in online, that we talk to them about those risks. So there's risks associated with the content that they're being exposed to. It can be sexual or pornographic or violent exposure. Oftentimes, advertising might be embedded in things that they're looking at or doing that may not be age appropriate. For example, children may be seeing e-cigarette advertisements. They might be drawn into using, some of these products. They may be exposed to racist or discriminatory hate speech or material. And then some websites are advocating unhealthy or dangerous behaviors such as self-harm or suicide or anorexia. So it's important for children to consider the reliability of what they're reading online, and trying to reinforce with them that not everything that they see or read online is true, or it may be written with a bias, right? Not really looking at it from everyone's point of view. There can be legal. We want to make sure that the students also understand that there can be legal consequences for using or downloading copyrighted content without the author's permission. So oftentimes when we go in to work with students and talking to them about internet safety and how to be safe on the internet, we are talking to them about some of those facts, talking to them about who they're talking to online and what kinds of information they're giving out, and making sure that they are staying on and using apps or websites that are approved by their parents, by their families, or by school, by school or teachers. So the next thing that we want to talk about is, and when we're monitoring what students and children are doing online, is contact. So discussing who your child can interact with, or who can contact them online. And this is really something very important that we are stressing with students, that it's important for them to understand and realize that making new friends online sometimes can be a fun thing, right? And can be open them up to maybe new people that they would otherwise not get to communicate and contact with. But they also need to understand that it can be dangerous, and that they may not, those people that they're speaking to, or through gaming. I saw a lot of people were talking about gaming, and unfortunately, when they sometimes people that do not have good intentions, trying to get students to understand that they may be trying to contact them that way, right? Or getting personal information through that way. So we encourage them to make sure that they're not sharing any personal information with them. We talk to kids about protecting any information that they may share, such as where they live or where they go to school, their last names, their parents' names, any passwords or emails, that none of that should be shared. We reinforce with them that any information or anyone that they're talking to or speaking to online, they don't know for sure who that person is. Okay? Unless they have actually met that person face to face, that person could be pretending to be someone else. So, we talk to them, especially young students, about, it's okay to share your favorite color or your favorite food, things like that, because that is not really identifiable or can be brought or traced back to you personally. There may also be communication with an individual who's attempting to maybe influence your child's thinking in some way, or persuade him or her to take part in unhealthy or dangerous behaviors. So again, they might be being persuaded to share personal information or provide contact details or meet up with that person in person, offline. And this can lead to harassment, to stalking, to hateful behavior, or even grooming for soliciting a child for inappropriate purposes. So it's important that that we also keep a close eye on who your child is contacting while they're online and through social media. The other C is conduct. So discuss with your child that they can create a digital reputation by being online, and the importance of avoiding risky behavior online. So the other thing that we're always explaining to students, that they understand that anything that they're putting online can have a big impact on both themselves and on other people, and that they leave that digital footprint that is created online that can follow them throughout their lives. Okay. We don't want your child to be the one to behave in a way that can contribute to risky content or contact. This could include children writing or creating hateful materials about other children, bullying, pressuring, harassing, or posting inappropriate images of any kind, including a material that they may have taken or produced themselves. If you look to your right on the screen, this is something that we often share with students when we're talking to them, and really trying to reinforce with them that once they put that out there, it is out there and they can't take it back. And so they need to think about what they're saying, and is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring somebody to be better or to reach their goals? Is it really necessary? Is it something that really everybody needs to know? And is it kind? Would you want somebody to be sharing it about you? And so when using the internet, it's important for them to understand and be aware of who can view your child's information and who they're sharing it with, and understanding and reinforcing with them that once they put it out there, it is out there and they cannot get it back. Okay. Amy's going to talk to you a little bit more about some specific social media apps now.
So we understand that, keeping up with all of the social media apps and everything that's out there is really challenging, because there's so many new things that are coming out and it's hard to keep up with. So once you've got a handle on Snapchat and Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, there's something else that comes out like TikTok and Kick and Vine. There's so many new things that are coming out so rapidly. And it's your kids are discovering them so quickly, that adults are discovering them very quickly. So this can be really tough, and we get that, but it can be manageable. So you don't have to worry too much about learning how to use each individual app and program, because instead, we want you to focus on understanding how your kids are using them. You don't have to know all the ins and outs of everything, but just trying to figure out, if there's a new service, that they want to sign up for, what you should talk about before they sign up for that. And a big part of why kids jump onto social media networks is so that they can have private, unsupervised, safe spaces with friends, like Snapchat, for instance, or, Instagram. Or even Facebook or Instagram, also to interact with, maybe relatives that live out of state, or maybe friends that have moved away, or that go to a different school. So there is a website that we will be sending to you in that information. That it was sent to you in that zip drive there. I'm not going to go back and forth on it right now, because obviously we don't have time to go through every single platform, because we will be here literally all day. But on that website, that is this link that's on the top here, that's in your information. It has every platform that your child could use, or that they could make an account for. And you're able to view what the risks of each platform are as you see your child using them. Okay, so it's very, very informational. There is a lot of information. I can put the link in the chat at the end too, if for some reason you weren't able to get that email or get that zip drive. But this is a very, very powerful website that is very useful. And what we know about the effects of social media that has on kids is overall their mental health. Okay, it's a big deal these days. The use of screens, it seems that less kids are happy, and those who use a moderate amount seem to be a little bit more happier than those who use more. So they call this the Goldilocks hypothesis, where those who use screens the most are less happy, those who use a moderate amount, and those who use a moderate amount are much happier than those who use none at all. Okay, but what does moderate mean? Okay, moderate can be different for every kid. Okay, there's no clear line that shows like what teens shouldn't cross with social media. So it's more about how it fits into a balanced approach to everything else in their lives or their family's lives. So, if they're having a fun time and, with their friends and their family and they're, pursuing their goals and their interests still, and it seems like they're pretty happy and they're staying healthy, getting enough sleep, their grades are fine, and they seem to be doing okay. It probably seems like their use is pretty balanced. But it also matters to what they're using the social media, the platforms for. Facebook's own researchers found that the endless scrolling and liking with no interaction tends to make people unhappier. So not just teens, but just people in general. And teens who have that digital status seeking intentions tend to engage in the risky behavior offline also, because they like, the thrill of it. And there's a lot of variables that make it hard to nail down cause and effect. But kids who are unhappier overall have more negative outcomes using social media than kids who are happier offline. So a lack of sleep can also be an issue too, which we always don't look at, especially when it comes to mental health. So sleep is a very powerful thing that we can utilize. So if digital media seems to be making your kid unhappy, then that's enough to kind of go on. So it's also important to know that a human brain isn't fully developed until 25. Sometimes people know that, sometimes they don't, even as an adult. So the prefrontal cortex, which helps make good decisions and prioritize, isn't done growing. It's the very last thing that is done growing once you reach those mid-20s. Kind of think of like the conductor of an orchestra. Okay, it helps direct everything, and that's like the prefrontal cortex. So before their prefrontal cortex is fully developed, tweens and teens use a different part of their brain called the ventral striatum, which isn't great at thinking about consequences. So in the context of social media, that might mean posting a picture that's embarrassing to themselves or maybe somebody else. When it comes to gaming, it could mean playing all night instead of doing homework and getting enough sleep, because even if they have to get up early in the morning, and they tend to see situations as final and forever. Okay, they don't really think about the long term of it. They're only really thinking about what's going on, in that moment. So it might mean that if someone's making those cruel comments and someone else agrees with one cruel comment, it might make them feel like, that's the truth and, there's no questions about it. And then everyone agrees with it. So that won't change. And then also as tweens, they're developing the ability to see others' perspectives, which is an important skill. And with the increased focus on peer approval, it also means being preoccupied with what others think about them. So they really care about other people's opinions. And social media can also play into those insecurities around other people's opinions. And so it can game chats too. So the bottom line is that around these brain facts is that tweens and teens are set up for risk-taking, making quick decisions without thinking through, seeking peer approval, or being preoccupied with other people's opinions of them, and seeing things as black and white total truth or no end in sight. Okay, it's pretty much what they see everything as. And since that's what kids are working with when we hand them smartphones, there are some potential impacts that social media and gaming can also have on their mental health. So there's 4 categories. So there's comparison, pressure, drama, and isolation. So the first thing that we're going to go through is comparison. So one of the challenges, especially with the social media, is that, you know, everyone's comparing themselves to somebody else, especially, you know, what you look like. So comparing your insides to other people's carefully curated, poised, and filtered outsides, you know, where they're using all these effects and they're making it look like they're perfect. You know, and teen brains are already prone to feel vulnerable around what others think. The way that they use social media can definitely impact how they feel about themselves. So if they're always going to be comparing themselves to somebody on social media or whatever platform that they're seeing, because that's just what they feel and what they think is true. So some of the elements of social media that are trickiest have to do with appearance. So it's easy to alter images with a certain kind of app. So there's Facetune, there's filters, there's Photoshop, there's body like contour apps and things like that, because people, not just teens, are constantly comparing themselves to pictures that they see, or they're likely trying to meet a false standard that no one can really achieve. Okay, it's all photoshopped and makeup and fake. And teens compare themselves both to peers and celebrities, which sets them up for different levels of false standards also. And many of us know from using Facebook, if you do, the majority of pictures we see are all smiling and they're pretty and everyone seems happy and fun, but no one's life is perfect. Okay, we don't see all the elements of everybody's life, but people always want to put the positive things up on there. So social media, YouTube, and even video games can serve up a lot of this content and images of beauty ideals, tutorials, and even products. Okay. It all seems to boil down to what you look like that is most important, and which is a really hard message for an insecure teen, especially. There can be, you know, sexy, inadequately clothed content out there, and teens might even start to see their own friends sharing these types of pictures too, and they could feel pressured to, you know, to do the same, because, you know, they could be exploring their own sexuality, and it can be tricky to resist that urge to put it on display when they see so much of it. And it's also hard for them to compare themselves with friends who could be doing the same. And online feedback is quick. Okay, you're not, you know, waiting for an email or a written letter from somebody, or, you know, things like that. You know, everything's quick now. You know, people can comment right away. So whether you're on social media or you're on a game, if you get those likes, that reinforces posting more of that same content. You know, they like that feeling of being liked. But if you get those negative comments, it can be crushing, you know, and especially if there's judgment about appearance, you know, it can be very hurtful. So there are lots of things that come from these beliefs. They may feel like everyone else everyone else knows what they're doing and is having the best time all the time, or they could feel like they just aren't attractive enough, or social media can reinforce body image issues, and it can also sorry, I get a little feedback here. Body image issues that could already be going on. Sorry, I was getting a little feedback there. And there are a lot of things that come from these beliefs. So one study found that women performed worse on a math test while wearing a bathing suit than while wearing a sweater. Okay, so which indicates that the way we see ourselves can also impact our performance and our confidence. So if teens work hard to look perfect online, they're probably going to start to believe that no one will think that they're imperfect themselves. So getting likes and online approval can also become very important as they measure their self-worth. So what do we do? So what do we do? First, it's critical that the feelings your teens has around comparing themselves is not to, especially to others that are real, that they're not just swept under the rug and they're not really ignored, like just by saying, oh, you're so pretty, you know, don't worry about what other people think about you, because that's what they care about in the moment. And that's not reassuring them. You know, they know that their parents or their loved ones or, you know, family members are going to say that to them. You know, they feel like, well, that's what they have to say, even if they believe it or not. So starting with empathy and validation can be very powerful. So your kids can feel seen, okay, and they can feel heard. So you could say, like, I know it's really hard when it seems like everyone looks good and has it together. And it's also true that these pictures are just one piece of their puzzle. So comparing our whole selves to one piece doesn't add up. So just kind of reassuring them that, you know, that's not everything about their life. That's not just what they see, or that's the only thing they're seeing. They're not seeing everything else. If that's not really working, if you're having trouble with that, you know, try to relate into their circumstances, maybe as an adult. Like, imagine you have a coworker who has the same position and you seem to be, you know, they seem to be perfect, they're attractive, they dress nice, and they seem like popular, cool. But not only that, they seem to do a perfect job all the time. They're always getting praised. And, you know, that's what you see and you hear. So that's a bit like what social media can feel like to a teen, an unattainable standard that's always on display. And that's what they're constantly seeing, and it's at their fingertips. So Stanford researchers coined this phrase called duck syndrome. And it's describing how when a duck is swimming and they're on the surface and they look smooth and calm and it's pretty effortless from above. But then underneath, the duck's feet are frantically paddling, you know, back and forth so that they can stay afloat and they can move around. So this is helpful to remind teens that someone's life may look effortless, but everyone has struggles and insecurities, and we don't see what's going on, you know, underneath. So if that still isn't working, if your child still is unconvinced, take a look at some of the content they're viewing and put a lie to it. So for example, you know, the Kardashians are always, you know, a big thing, but, you know, they've used plastic surgery, they have makeup artists, you know, they have Photoshop, and they also have some, you know, well-publicized unhappiness. You know, their lives aren't always perfect either. And they do show that on their social media and on their shows too. There's YouTube, social media influencers who try to keep it real also. They're not just showing all, you know, they're perfect and all the positive things too. They try to make things imperfect so that your kid knows, see if your kids are following them also. And if friends are the ones that are curating perfection, your child likely knows it's an illusion, and maybe even what methods they're using to try and achieve it. Talk about the pros and cons of that approach. You know, how much energy does it take to maintain that illusion? You know, are they putting in a lot of thought and effort to it? You know, is it taking a lot of time? Do the benefits go beyond the likes, or are they only doing that to get those likes? And also, you as an adult and as a parent, modeling struggle, you know, make mistakes, show them that, you know, we're not perfect either. And being imperfect helps your kid deal with it too. And if they see us trying to be perfect, then they might take that pressure on themselves as well. Okay, so instead of only emphasizing positive outcomes, it's important to praise effort and especially, you know, even if they don't succeed, working towards something and learning from the experience, even when it ends in failure, is how you can build resilience in kids and work through perfectionism. Okay, Michelle's going to go through pressure.
Okay, so the next potential pitfall of social media use is pressure. So, you know, we talk to students all the time about peer pressure and how they, you know, not just tweens, not just teens, but everybody deals with peer pressure in their lives. And when we relate that to social media, we notice that these challenges affect everyone. And especially because tween and teen brains have less ability to prioritize and make those good decisions, they're even more vulnerable to those addictive qualities that technology can have. It's always on kind of nature of digital media. So it's really tricky, even for us as adults, to balance being reachable 24/7. Sometimes when we hear people talking about bullying and bullying that used to take place, it used to, at least if bullying before social media and all of these outlets, but when bullying took place, if it took place at school or on the playground, at least when you went home, it wasn't continuing when you were at home. So there was an end to it. Now, unfortunately, because everyone is reachable 24/7 through the internet and social media, it's harder for them to get away from it and check and step away. And many of these apps and games that were used, they're designed to keep us using them. So they're checking on them all the time, playing with them. And some of the biggest issues are getting an almost constant influx of communication in lots of different forms. So Snapchats, text, chats, and posts. And just like back in the day when the phone would ring and you'd run to pick it up, teens today feel like they need to respond right away, because letting too much time go by before you respond to a message might send a message to that person that you're mad at them or that you don't care about them. And in fact, 72% of teens in the US feel the need to respond immediately to online communication. And in the midst of all of this information being flung around, it's easy to feel that if you don't keep up, you're going to miss out on something. So if there's a group chat and you're not responding, you may miss a new inside joke or some important gossip that everyone will be referencing, and then you'll feel left out of the loop. Okay. Those compelling or red notification numbers, they're like that dopamine rush of those likes and those follows. And in-app purchases for in-game rewards that come up. They're constantly updating feeds. They have those algorithms. And so those are all techniques from companies that they use to keep you hooked, okay? To get you hooked on them and to keep you hooked. No matter what your kid is into, scrolling, posting, playing, or watching, there's some sticky science at play trying to keep them tied to their screen, okay? When someone likes one of your posts, do you feel like you're obligated to like theirs? Or somebody likes a picture that you post, do you feel like you're obligated to, to respond back to theirs in some way? So for teens, social media can be an extension of friendship. So liking something online can actually does mean something to them. Snap streaks, so a series of Snapchat pictures that volley back and forth between two people, are another example of this unspoken social contract that teens feel that they must maintain, or they're letting the other person down. Kids playing multiplayer games also feel that if they're part of a group or a network that's on that game, that they're supposed to do a certain competition or a raid or a play at some level at a certain time. They feel like it is very important that they participate, so that they don't disappoint their team. Not only can we not keep up with the Kardashians, as they say, but also we can't stay on top of all the social media feeds that there are. So if kids only use Snapchat and Instagram, that's already a bunch of communication and news to stay up on. And it can start to feel like a full-time job for them that starts to overtake their lives and their thoughts. And so the more teens feel pressured to stay in touch and in the know, the less time they have for other things, like sleep, as we talked about. Unfortunately, lots of teens already struggle with sleep because of early school start times or busy schedules that they have. So that constant connection can even complicate those things further. So that we know that there's been some difference of opinions on that impact of blue light from phones and tablets and TVs. And so, it may not be as significant as, it was once thought of, but we know that, it can have an impact on their ability to fall asleep. So, maybe limiting their screen time, at bedtime or when it's time to go to sleep. because we know that that can have an effect on their ability to fall asleep. And we know that that lack of sleep can contribute to health problems, to lower performance in school and work, and again to mental health problems as well, like depression. So it's hard to feel like you can't keep up, and it's pretty compelling to see why those likes and dislikes and follows, we like to see them climbing, right? They may feel like it's critical to stay on top of news or what the celebrities are doing, or what kind of information is important out there in that social group. So that is what is referred to as FOMO, and that stands for fear of missing out. And they might feel that if they don't hold up their end of the digital social contract by liking posts or maintaining those snap streaks or playing that game, that people are going to be mad at them and that they'll be replaced by someone else that will keep up with that. So we need to make sure that we try to, again, set that example too, so that we are having a balance in our lives, and we're talking about and we're not reinforcing that concept with them, where we're feeling like we have to have those things as well as adults. So how do we help our kids with these pressures? Again, it's important not to dismiss or minimize their feelings of FOMO, because it's a very real thing to them. And so we need to make sure we acknowledge their feelings, that they're real, that they're legitimate, even if we don't seem to understand them at the time. Okay. Again, sometimes if you're having trouble understanding, here's one way to relate to that. Imagine, the doorbell's ringing, then it rings again and again, your phone's ringing, there's a knock on your back door, and any one of those things could be really important, or none of them are important at all. You just don't know. And a prize is coming, but not when or how, but if you miss it, it'll be gone and your family will be disappointed. And that's a little bit about how it feels to them. So it's like, it's just a juggling act for them. And though this might be really tricky for some teens, it's important to encourage them to maybe sometimes turn off those notifications, or at least downgrade them to, a less intrusive version. So, the thing's not beeping, or, sometimes making a certain song or a certain noise or a bell or different kinds of things. So in settings, they can turn off those notifications completely, or they can downgrade them from a sound to or a banner, and every bell and whistle doesn't have to be going off every time they get something, some sort of notification. Or maybe they can pick one app to get notifications for, or let friends know that it's really important. If it's something that's really important, that they should text them instead, because they're not going to be checking their notifications every time they get it, or immediately. So keeping devices away from the dinner table and out of the bedroom can help your kid contain the urge to keep checking them. So again, as adults, we, I know from myself, I can be guilty of that as well, right? And so it's really important to have maybe those, places in the home that are electronic or, social media free. And so those kids may need a computer, obviously, for homework. We know that they probably don't need their phones constantly for doing schoolwork. Okay. Have your team get into a habit of either putting their phone in another room while they're doing their schoolwork, or using an app designed to keep kids focused. There's different apps, that again can be beneficial. There's a forest app that helps them stay focused or be present in the moment. There's a Calm app that you may be familiar with that helps with meditating and helps with some positive coping skills, stress coping skills. So, helping them to find some of those things that are positive and can be helpful. If your kid wants to listen to music at bedtime, you may be able to use the device controls to make sure that's all that they're doing. Okay. If not, having them have like an old-fashioned alarm clock with, a radio or a different kind of way that they can do that. That's not having that phone by them all the time and all the way till bedtime. It also helps if you put the blame, they can put the blame on you, right? We always tell this, so we tell them this with other kinds of things regarding peer pressure too, right? Blame it on your parents. Sorry, I didn't answer you right away, but my mom won't let me have my phone after 9 p.m. or won't let me take my phone into my bedroom at nighttime when it's time for bed. Okay. So again, it's really important that you lead by example. The way you use your device is really important, as your kid will definitely call you out on it. If you tell them one thing, okay, or suggest them to do, oh, okay, I see the principal. Mr. R said, blame it on the principal. Exactly, right? We'll take the blame. Okay. We don't mind that at all. If you struggle with all that sticky social media, be upfront about it, challenging each other to resist and set those limits for yourself as well, right? Be that role model for your student or for your child, for your student. If you're using your phone as a tool for work, for shopping lists, tell your child what you're doing so that they know you're not just, scrolling on it all the time, right? And let them know that that the time spent with them is important. That one-on-one, face-to-face time is also very important as well. All right, so that balance, that media balance that we're all always trying to strive for. So the next pitfall that we're going to talk about is drama. Okay, and we know if we have or have had middle schoolers, high schoolers, we know that drama is a normal part of their lives without even putting in social media or internet, online uh, uh, issues, right? So subtle or not subtle, there are ways for drama to be played out online. Okay. There's always been, friendship cliques and mean girls and bullies, but being online, again, like I said, takes it to those new levels. Of course, we know that kids can be mean sometimes, but what's different is that using online in this online world, it amplifies everything. It accelerates those mean comments and rumors and those embarrassing pictures and information. Imagine that you had that burn book where people were writing notes about classmates and they're passing it around. Well, now that same, notebook is accessible 24/7 to everyone in the school and beyond. And what's written about you is permanent. And this is what we need to really reinforce with these students and these young people, because, no matter how many times we say it, they don't seem to always be really taking that seriously. And so we need to really make sure that they understand that even with Snapchat, where they think, well, it goes away, somebody can still track it back to you, okay? And it's always still going to be out there. So once it's out there, you can't get it back. The drama can also involve romantic relationships. So if someone starts, asking for somebody to send, sexy pictures, inappropriate pictures, that might feel like, well, I need to do this. If I don't do this, if I don't comply, then maybe I'll lose the interest of that person. That person's not going to like me anymore. And then once you send one, there's usually going to be requests for more. And then oftentimes that can be shared with other people, right? So letting them know that, just because you send it to one person doesn't mean it's going to just stay with that one person. And while some online drama stems from a misunderstanding of some kind, there's also sometimes that deliberate, what we call cyberbullying, which is targeting prolonged online attacks meant to cause harm to one specific person or one specific group of people. And so cyberbullying is bullying that takes place online or through the use of technology. And not surprisingly, cyberbullying is a very significant stressor in a young person's life. In addition to feeling distressed, they may also feel embarrassed, hurt, or even fear for their safety. They may even blame themselves for the cyberbullying. So because cyberbullying occurs in cyberspace online, it feels like it's permanent. And kids know that once something is out there, it's always going to be out there. They can feel exposed and embarrassed and overwhelmed. So, as you can see, there's examples of how cyberbullying can occur. It can be unkind messages, hurtful comments, sharing of embarrassing photos, sharing photos without permission, and then exclusion. So excluding somebody through social media or internet or online as well. So cyberbullying sometimes causes, again, kids to feel very excluded or ostracized at school, and constantly they often feel alone or isolated. And this can be particularly painful because friends are so crucial at this age. When kids don't have friends, this can lead to more bullying, because oftentimes people bully, or somebody that's doing the bullying bullies somebody that maybe feels like they don't have somebody that's going to stand up for them, or somebody that's going to stick up for them. So the more they're excluded, sometimes the more painful that bullying can happen. Many victims of cyberbullying will get angry about what's happening to them. And in fact, research indicates that anger is one of the most common responses to cyberbullying. And some kids that are victimized may even plot revenge or engage in retaliation. And so aside from trouble that they could get into, this approach is dangerous because it can keep them locked in that bully victim kind of cycle, right? So then oftentimes they might then turn into a bullying someone else, okay? So cyberbullying also can, erode, pick away at somebody's self-confidence and their feeling of self-worth, which can contribute to depression and anxiety. In those extreme cases where it is continuing, and it can often exhibit, kids that are experiencing this can also exhibit more significant kind of behavioral changes. So the use of drugs or alcohol. So kids who are harassed online are more likely to engage in substance abuse. So in fact, one study found that targets of cyberbullying were 2 to 5 times more likely to use marijuana or engage in binge drinking than their peers. Okay? Skipping school. Sometimes when kids are cyberbullied, the thought of going to school is just more than they can handle. So consequently, it's not common for them to skip school or even behave in such a way that results in suspension just so they don't have to go to school. Okay? In one survey, those who were cyberbullied reported 2 or more suspensions or detentions in prior year. Carrying a weapon. So this again is one of those extremes. Even more concerning is the fact that kids who are cyberbullied are more likely to bring a weapon to school. In fact, one survey found that targets of cyberbullying were 8 times more likely to have brought a weapon to school in the last 30 days than their peers. Okay. So the feelings of that overwhelming or stress can manifest physically in eating disorders. So kids who are cyberbullied may experience changes in their eating habits. They might skip meals. They might be binge eating because their lives feel out of control. Sometimes that's the one thing that they can control. Okay. And these efforts can again blow into very serious problems, and we talked about, especially if that bullying is being caused, or part of that bullying is they're using that distorted body image that Amy was talking to us about. So sleep disturbances we talked about can cause, cyberbullying can have an impact on their sleeping. And then this can cause insomnia, or maybe they're sleeping more than usual, or they're having nightmares. These can also all be, signs that we need to be looking at, that there may be some problems, that we need to talk to our child, that we need to look into what's going on in their social media accounts. And then it can also, that stress, we know that stress of any kind can also then lead to some physical issues as well. So, upset stomachs, abdominal pain, ulcers, obviously, and as well. So they might, so all of those kinds of things are the very serious nature of things that can happen and occur, and why we need to take cyberbullying so very seriously. So Amy's going to talk to you a little bit now about isolation.
Sorry, I was muted. We only have like 5-ish minutes, so I'm gonna try to go through this kind of quickly. But depending on your child, social media and games could either start out as a refuge or they can end up that way. Some kids like the social interactions easier online as opposed to in person. So like, in the game chats or even in the, the direct messages and things like that. Or online relationships and social media can become a way to avoid problems and their emotions, which could also end up isolating them. So when kids isolate themselves, there's always a sign of some kind, or usually there can be. Though it can mean a variety of things also. So because the online world is limitless and it caters to every interest, kids who have trouble relating to people in real life can find their people online. So that sense of belonging is what teens want most. And because of some of the other factors that we've discussed, like pressure and drama, kids can start to let the digital world take over also. They can make different personalities online. They don't have to be that person that is that everyone else perceives them as in real life. And because of some, so they might lose interest in other activities and maintain their online lives, and everything else might feel like an outside distraction. And maybe even kids who are dealing with trauma or conflict or other problems, being online can feel like that refuge and a way to avoid their problems also. So sometimes this leaves them open to relationships with strangers, which often isolates them even further. So teens who isolate by going online are usually dealing with intense feelings of some kind. And they might feel like it's easier to just have friends online since in-person relationships could be too difficult for them, or they feel too awkward, or they might feel better when they're online because they don't have to feel certain things or deal with problems. Or they also might feel like they're in too deep if grades have slipped or a conflict with parents has started and there's no way out. Okay, and then Michelle's going to go over quickly how to help. I know we can breeze through the rest of this.
Yeah. So if a kid is already feeling isolated or is avoiding something by being online, it probably means they're already struggling. So a sensitive approach is always best to use. It might seem best to take away devices if a kid's use feels out of control and they've given up on things they used to love. But if they're using digital media as an escape and a lifeline, it could make things worse. So we want to make sure that we are careful with how we approach these matters. So before taking drastic measures around devices, try to identify the causes of maybe some of that isolation. Is this a pattern? You know your child, and we always talk about that with parents. You know what your child, you know your child, and can look for those things that might be those red flags, right? And try to start those conversations with your child in a way that shows them that you want to try to understand where they're coming from, and that you care, and that you want to do your best. So being involved, getting to know and looking and talking to them about what they're doing online, trying to monitor it, staying involved, talking to other parents, because sharing information with other parents is often helpful as well. Find ways to, find that balance in your life as well, and find ways that your family can use these things, social media and things, in a safe way and keeping your child safe. We know we ran out of time. So much information to cover. We did share with you, I know, lots of different good resources about some of those specific apps. Again, it was very difficult for us to go into all of them, but some of the parent controls and safeguards that you can look into. There's also a website called Common Sense that you can go on, that, if you don't have time to review and check out every single one of these apps, you can go on there and they actually review them for you, and you can find out what are the ages that these are appropriate, what can be done with them, what are the parental controls and things like that. So please contact us if you have any other questions, or we can provide you with any other information. If anybody has any questions and they want to stay on, thank you. If not, have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Well done.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question before you guys take off. I know that we were taping this. Is this going to be made available at some place?